just going to do a quick little bit of advertising again. So just to remind people that we have launched our website today. It's for anybody who has any interest in pediatrics, and we hope that the joining fee is such that it doesn't put you off. And we're trying to get, we once had a meeting, a unity meeting, where we try to get all the subspecialties together. So this is for young pediatricians, old pediatricians, in the beginning of their career, end of career, any subspecialty. We're really just trying to work together. And if you guys can join our initiative, then we can actually do great things together. So please don't forget to log on to that website and become a member. So then I'm going to hand over to Dave. So Dave, I know you've also got a huge research track record, and really interested to hear what you're going to share with us today. And I'm hoping that you can share your screen. Fantastic, I can see that.
Great, thanks, Minon. Can you see
that? Yeah, I can see that, and I can hear you loud and clear. Thank you very much.
Okay, perfect. Right, hello everybody. My name's Dave Le Roux, as Minon mentioned. Unfortunately, this slideshow doesn't lend itself well to multitasking. It's quite visual. A lot of the things that I want to talk about, I want to actually demonstrate examples of data sets. So you're going to actually have to look at it. If you're driving, or if you're doing childcare, then listen in and then make sure you look at the slides afterwards, because a lot of what I'm saying is going to make sense unless you can see it. Let's try that.
Good. Perfect, thank you.
See that? I'm going to switch off my camera and let's roll. Okay. I've got no conflicts of interest. Just to say, many people think that they need to know everything before they can start doing research. The truth is, you just need to have a rough idea. I want to give you this little wedge tonight. This is all you need to know. This is the stuff that you will learn as you get going. This is the stuff you'll learn later. This you'll never know, but that's fine. So please don't feel you have to know everything before you get started. You just need to get started. And hopefully this little wedge is going to be enough to get you going. Where we're going tonight, I want to talk about the research process, what it involves, importance of data management, talk about data collection and data collection tool, data capturing, data cleaning, and 3 slides about data analysis. That's all we're going to go. Sorry, I can't see the chat at this point. So if anything crops up, or if you lose the audio, Minon, will you just interrupt me and shout at me, and I'll slow down?
No problem, everything's good.
So this is the research process. Basically, you start off with a research question, and then you get you do some background reading, you write a protocol, you devise your data collection tool, you send it for departmental review. Once you've got scientific approval, you send for the ethics review. Then you do your data collection, you clean your data, analyze the data, present it, and finally write it up. So this whole downward side here, the descending limb, is part of data management. Everything from your data collection up until your writing. Data management is a big deal. There's a lot you can read about data management and how to do it properly. There are loads of good resources and online help forums. I found the UCT stats department has got some very good resources. They've got a great, some good guidelines of how to set up your database. They've got some very useful stuff, including a checklist that I'll run through with you a little bit later. So before you start, look at your database guidelines and make sure that you're going to be doing this appropriately. So if you're starting from scratch with your, over here with your research question, that's all very well. You can go through this whole process. Sometimes you're in the fortunate position where you inherit a data set and you're doing a secondary analysis of already collected data. And you get the data set and you just need to start cleaning it and analyzing it. And that feels like a bonus because you've skipped out all of these steps over here. The problem is now you've got this data, you know what it means. And you start to clean it, and that gets bigger and bigger. And eventually becomes such a huge job cleaning this data that you wish you could go back in time and redesign the data collection tool and do it properly this time. That's very frustrating. You don't want to have to go back and recollect all of your data if it's collected correctly in the first place. So this is the database checklist. If you're going to send a database to UCT stats for them to help you with your stats, you need to comply with this checklist and make sure you've done everything correctly. So read this carefully before you draw up your database. I want to talk briefly about data collection and how you go about collecting your data. The old-fashioned way was to do a paper-based data capture tool and then later enter it into a database. This way you've got a paper trail. So all of your data is confirmed. If there's a weird result in your database, you can go back, you can look at the paper copy and you can say, oh, okay, well, there was just a typo, and we can just fix that. There is an extra step, which adds a potential error at data entry, but it's very nice to have a big fat file of hard copy paper versions of your data capture. But it is a bit old-fashioned. Electronic data capture is the way of the future, where you enter directly into a secure database on an iPad or on a device. This will go straight into Access or RedCap or Cloud SQL or one of these online databases. The problem is there's no paper trail of data changes. So if something is entered wrongly, you can't go back and check it without going back to the patient's file or re-interviewing the person. So there's no way to confirm a weird result. It is a little bit tricky to build a database. Takes a bit of trial and error. RedCap is actually very easy. With a YouTube video and about an hour of fiddling around, you can actually build yourself a very, very nice database just from scratch. And there is professional help as well. Or you can enter it directly into Excel. Excel is terrible. It's easy to lose the data. You can easily overwrite a cell or delete a cell or drag it from one into another. You can lose huge chunks of data without even noticing it. It's impossible for big data sets. Once you've got more than about 30 or 40 columns, it just becomes impossible. It's definitely not a good idea to ever work directly into Excel. But you'll see many of the examples I'm giving this evening are problems that came out of Excel databases. Excel is still used. It's probably okay for a once-off MED if it's a small database, but please don't do anything more serious than a handful of data of columns or data points, and don't stake your career or your reputation on anything that's coming out of Excel. Let's talk a bit about the data collection tool. The most important thing is how you want it to look at the end. You must design your data collection tool with the end point in mind, not so that it's got a glossy looking pretty thing in your hand. You must think about what it must look like at the end. Your data set is going to have one line per person, and one data point is going to give you an extra column. Okay, so that's what you're aiming towards. You must bear that in mind. Don't design your data collection tool to be like a flow chart of blood results or an ICU admission clerking booklet. You mustn't have free text boxes. You must try to have yes or no or predetermined multiple choice options. Know what information you want. Don't try to collect too much detail. Don't ever have a field for age, just date of birth and date of event, and you can calculate the age later during data cleaning. Whatever is badly captured, you're going to have to fix during data cleaning. You want to try and minimize the amount of data cleaning that you have to do. Some of it is inevitable, but you want to try and do as little as possible. So here's a data collection tool which I designed. I thought it looks quite pretty. It's quite smart. It's got the study logo at the top. I just come out of ICU, so I know that we often repeat blood counts. So there are five different columns in case the child had 5 full blood counts during the course of his pneumonia admission. And it's got all this information, and I was very proud of this. It looked very much like this ICU flowchart. What I wasn't thinking is that every single one of these points becomes a column in a database. So it starts off like that. So here's the place of the pneumonia episode and the date and the folder number, and here we go, and some more and some more. Okay, so one full blood count results in 28 columns in the database. And I had 5 full blood counts. So there are hundreds of columns just about the random variables included in the full blood count. which means it's impossible to find something unless you deliberately look for it, unless you go seeking for a particular variable name. And you can see the variables have got funny names. They've got these weird names. It is absolutely impossible to find something quickly because there's just too much. So what I should have done, I said, what is the one full blood count that is most representative of this child's pneumonia admission? That's the one we capture. Don't worry about the other four. It's just wasted space and a huge amount of wasted time. So this is a mistake that I made because I was thinking out of an ICU mentality. I wasn't thinking about what the database is going to look like at the end of it. Okay, let's talk about data cleaning. So data cleaning is a process of preparing data for analysis by removing or modifying data that's incorrect or improperly formatted. That sounds pretty straightforward. Sometimes it actually takes longer than doing the data collection and much longer than doing the analysis, just getting the data set ready to be analyzed. Data cleaning is very difficult to outsource to somebody else. You need to be very familiar with the data collection tool and the source data to be able to clean it properly. You can't give this to a statistician and say, analyze, and they're going to say to you, I don't know what this means. This is junk. I can't work with this until you've cleaned it. So you need to do the data cleaning yourself before you ask for someone to help with the analysis. Okay, so talking about data cleaning, the biggest crime of data cleaning, of bad data capture, is to mix numbers with text. So all software programs, they read a cell as either a text or as numeric. Software won't perform mathematical functions if it reads the cell as text, because it thinks it's words, not numbers. Software can't handle a mix of numeric and text. It can't sort or analyze or do an analysis on that. So don't ever add punctuation or units. If you add kilograms or centimeters or percentage, then the whole column becomes unreadable and unusable, and the machine will just throw it out. So here's an example of a mix of numbers and text. So here we've got viral loads, and over here there's a question mark. And here we've got a not applicable, and then another number, and then so this whole column is unusable. You can't touch it because you've mixed up text with numbers. Similarly, here you've got numbers, 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 and there's a percent. So this cell becomes text, and therefore the whole column becomes a mix of numbers and text, and the machine is going to throw its hands up and say, can't do this, can't work with this. Here you've got numbers, and here you've got text. It's a mess. If you need an explanation about a variable, rather add another column that says, not sure about this one, or he skipped the visit, and so this one is a month late, or rather have another column with an explanation rather than adding in free text into your numbers column. Those are the two examples I wanted to show. Just in terms of mixing numbers and text, some of the newer versions of Excel, they will show you whether Excel is reading a cell as text. It looks different to a cell that is being read as numeric. Excel could accept either a comma or a decimal point as a decimal marker, but you must use the correct one, and you can change that in your own personal settings. Once the data is entered, it's allocated to be either numeric or to be text. You can't change it. You can't fix it by changing the settings. You must go back and physically re-enter that cell or the entire column to tell Excel that it's actually not text, it's actually numbers. So here's another example. This is of looking at a meningitis study I was involved with. So we're looking at the neutrophils. So these ones are all right aligned, and these ones are left aligned. Okay. And looking at the polymorphs, the polys are all right aligned, but the glucose is all left aligned. Okay. So in this version, Excel was reading the polys as numbers, but the neutrophil, these neutrophils are numbers, and these ones are text. And these guys, when their version of Excel was set up to read the decimal marker as a comma and a full stop as a punctuation mark. And so every time you put a full stop in, Excel says, ha, this is text. This is not a number, it's text. And so it left aligns it. And it's all of these, anything with a decimal in it, Excel is reading these as words, not as numbers. So you can't do any analysis of any of this. And so the only thing to do, and you can't go back to the settings and change it. The only thing to do is to re-enter the whole lot. So I sent it back to them and said, guys, sorry, it's all wrong. Re-enter it. And they had to type in the whole lot. The entire spreadsheet had to be retyped because they'd mixed up numbers and text. So under going to Excel, you go to Options, Advanced Decimal Separator, and there it is over there. So I've selected my decimal separator as a point. You can use a comma or a point or something else, but you've got to know your version of Excel. What is your version using as a decimal separator? And then you flip and use that one. Don't use the wrong one. Okay. The second thing about data cleaning is to fix all the free text. The problem if you get too much data in one field means that somebody left a free text box and the text box was entered and now you've got too much junk in your columns. So this is a bacteriology paper that I was involved with. So you've got a specimen type and the date of the specimen, the results with the various cultures coming down here. And here, this cell is called resistance. You've got AMPI, KEF-TAS, clocks, AMPI, COMOX, PEN, VANCO. Everything just lumped together into one column. I can't sort this. I can't analyze this. I can't do anything with this. It's absolutely meaningless. What you need is to have one column per antibiotic, and one antibiotic per column. That's better. Now this I can work with. This I can see sensitive to amikacin, resistant to cefazolin, resistant. So this we can actually work with, where there's just one at a time. This is meaningless. It's rubbish. I can't do anything with that. Okay, so no text boxes, no free text. You must have tick boxes and one piece of data per column. Okay, dates and ages. Don't capture age. You can't sort or analyze or do anything with this. This is I don't know for anything. Weeks, months, days, this I can't do it. This is rubbish. I can't use this. Okay, so what you must do, you must have a date of birth and the date of the event, and then the software will then be able to calculate the age from the date of birth and date of the event. And this, because it's a number, this we can actually work with, and we can get a mean, a median. We can sort it by age. We can order them by age. This is actually something that's meaningful. So let's talk a bit about dates in Excel. Excel sees dates as numeric, starting on the 1st of January 1900. So if you go into an Excel spreadsheet and you type in 1 and you call it a date, it will say 1 Jan 1900, and then 2 is 2nd Jan 1900, and it goes on from there. Date separators, you can use spaces, you can use dashes, you can sometimes use a backslash, but not always, depending on what your local settings are like. Sometimes you need to enter it in UK as opposed to American settings, where it's month, day, or day, month. So if you type in 5621, it could be the 5th of June or the 6th of May, depending on what your settings are like. Once the data is entered, Excel will give that cell a meaning, and you can't fix it by changing the settings. You can't now, after the fact, change it. You have to re-enter it. You have to get a new column and then retype all the numbers in that column in the correct setting. It's a huge waste of time. So what I do, when you're entering it for the first time, use it in words. 28th of April, 2021. If you type in 28, and then each month has got a 3-letter code, so JAN, FEB, MAR, and the year, then Excel will allocate that cell to be a date, and it'll be the correct date, and then you won't have any problems. This is a very old paper I was involved in from 2004, and here you've got a mix of date formats. This is American settings, so they wanted month, day, and so here, except it was entered as day, month. So 21st of the 4th, Excel doesn't know what this means. It's calling this free text, but these are dates, but they're all wrong because the person who entered them was thinking South African but typing in American. If you get a badly formatted data set, you can't be sure of any of the dates because you don't know what the person was thinking when they typed it in, or what settings the computer was using when it received them. And you actually just need to re-enter them all. It's a huge waste of time. Okay, data cleaning, duplicates. You need to check for duplicates. So this is a data set I got about viral loads, virological suppression. This patient had exactly the same name and surname, spelled exactly the same. They had a 1-digit difference in their folder number and exactly the same date of birth. I'm absolutely convinced this is the same individual, but they were entered twice into the database. So you need to run a duplicate search, looking for similar names, same names, similar folder numbers, same folder numbers, similar dates of birth. You need to sort alphabetically by name and surname, looking for duplicates. You can do it manually if it's not a very big data set. Just scroll down, looking. Or if it's a big data set, you're going to have to ask the machine to go and look for you and try to find this. You can't afford to have this going through into analysis where it's clearly a duplicate entry. Okay, missing data. All retrospective record reviews should have missing data. So the intravirus project that I did with the students, presenting complaints of confirmed intravirus meningitis compared to bacterial meningitis. It was a retrospective record review. The data capture tool, we asked about CNS and GIT symptoms. And when they showed me the results, there was no missing data, nothing. And this is what the data looked like. Every single one of these, headache, fever, nausea, photophobia, seizures, lethargy, vomiting, diarrhea, cough, coryza, it was either yes or no. It was either 1 or 0, nothing missing, nothing at all. And that's impossible if it's retrospective record review, because there's always something missing in a retrospective record review. So there should always be some missing data. So in this data set, what does a 0 mean? Does it mean that the clinical sign was checked for and documented to be absent in the casualty notes? Or does it mean it wasn't actually mentioned in the clinical notes, but we just presumed it was negative, but it's actually just missing? So if 10 children had, for example, diarrhea, we've got 10 had it. Definitely, that's easy. We documented 10 cases. But what is the denominator? Is the denominator everybody who had a meningitis? Or is it just the patients who specifically said this child does not have diarrhea? How many of these children were actually asked about diarrhea? And how will you ever know? If all you get is a data set, how will you know how many of these are truly negative and how many are missing but considered to be negative? And that's going to have a huge impact on your percentages, your prevalence. All of your analysis depend on what is the denominator between the two different groups you're comparing. I said, can you fix this? But I don't think you can. I think if you get a data set like that, there's actually very little you can do with it. All you know is that some children had the clinical sign and some children didn't, but you really don't know how many children truly didn't have it and how many children it just wasn't captured in the casualty notes. So I don't think this is fixable. I don't think you can get any meaningful proportions or percentages from a data set like that. Okay, finally, in terms of data cleaning, you must explore. You must look at your data. You must look for errors and impossible values. Look at all the extreme values. So sort every column from highest to lowest. Look at the lowest, look at the highest, look at the upper and lower limits. Check all the ages, the oldest and the youngest. What are the things which are clearly impossible? So I'll take you back to this one about the virological suppression. And one child had a CD4 count of 390%, which is clearly wrong. Okay, so sort it. Look at the lowest, look at the highest, look for things which are impossible, go back and check those. If they're clearly wrong, you may want to just delete them and consider them missing. If possible, you want to go back to the source document, go back to track care, go look it up again yourself, enter the correct value. If it was an interview result or something, a clinical sign that you can't go back and check it, then you've lost it. You've lost the opportunity. It's gone, and you can't go back and correct it. Okay, so that sounds a bit intimidating in terms of data collection and data cleaning. I really want to stress you must get help early. When you write your protocol, plan what analysis you're going to do, get stats advice before you design your data collection tool. So say to the stats guy, hey, I'm doing this project. These are my outcomes. This is how I'm planning to capture the data. And they'll write back and say, actually, don't do this, do this. Instead of asking this question, ask that. And these boxes should all be yes, no. And these should all be drop-down items of a menu. Finally, you need to clean the data before you can send it for analysis. You need to do it yourself. You can't outsource data cleaning. You're the only person who knows what the data means. You can't get the stats guy to do your data cleaning. Okay, so this is the database checklist. I'm just going to run through this very briefly. It's on the website that I showed you. All the data are combined in a single table. Confidential identifying data being removed. Each row represents a unique instance, like a single patient. Each column corresponds to a single measured variable and is named in the first row of the file, and then no rows above the name for the column name. So the meningitis database, so the students had carefully labeled separated blood results and CSF results. And they'd added an extra row. So row 1 was, and that's useless. I can't work with this because I need to have the first row must be the name of the column. There must be no rows above the name of the column. Okay, so this is wrong. Variable name, especially short and unique. Data which is missing or unknown is represented by completely blank or empty cells. Numeric fields contain only numbers and no units, no text descriptions. Categorical fields are filled in consistently. In the descriptive text, there are no discrepancies. Data entered in the exact same format throughout the data. A codebook has been compiled as per the database codebook guidelines. Okay, so you tick this off and you sign it and you send it to them. And once you've complied with their checklist, they might consider helping you with your stats analysis. Okay, so let's talk very briefly now at the end about data analysis. So in terms of analyzing data, well, what is appropriate? What should we as clinicians be doing? Interesting, looking at the historical context, the UK General Medical Council sends instructions to the medical schools about what they should be teaching medical students. So in the 1950s, the instruction was be acquainted with the principle. So basically just kind of know that it happens. In 1967, the instruction was you must know biometric methods and data analysis. So they expected you to actually be able to do the analysis. So in the 60s and 70s, doctors were being expected, taught and trained to do the analysis themselves. 1987, it changed back to reading and interpreting. So people who trained in medicine in the 60s, 70s, and 80s had a fair amount of this training at med school, and many of them can actually do their own stats, or more dangerously, they think they can do their own stats, but they actually can't. Since 1987, if you're a clinician in the UK, you are not expected to do your own stats. You should read the paper, interpret and understand, but you don't have to do it yourself. And the South African guidelines aren't as explicit as the UK GMC, but I think we're following very similarly to this. The old days, people were expected to do their own stats, and now in a slightly more modern era, we're not expecting people to do their own analyses. So what should you do? What analysis could you do? You must explore the data. You must look for outliers, impossible values. You must clean the data. Definitely, you must do that. You could do some descriptive statistics and frequency tables and histograms. That's doable. Don't do a p-value unless you're testing an hypothesis. So if you're just presenting data to say this is what we found, you don't need p-values. It's just descriptive. If you're trying to prove a theory that one group is different to another group, sure, then you can do a p-value. But that's analytic. If you're just doing descriptive statistics, no p-values. You could do histogram. So this is the virological data that we did as an MED. So here you can clearly see the stavudine group is different to the abacavir group. Stavudine is different to abacavir. So that's quite a nice, and that's done in Excel. That's not an impossible graphic to present. And the number of children started on antiretroviral therapy, peaking in the mid 2000s, then coming down quite substantially since then. A chart like this is doable by your average clinician. What could you do? Maybe if you wanted to, you could maybe decide whether two groups are the same or different. You could look at a risk, whether the outcome occurred or didn't occur. You could calculate a risk ratio and a confidence interval. Maybe if you were interested in that, you could compare two groups. Risk ratios are really easy. You can Google them. You can enter into MEDCALC. It'll give you a risk ratio and a 95 confidence interval. It's not that difficult, and many clinicians are able to do that and prove quite convincingly that the two groups had different outcomes and are statistically significantly different without much more than using Google and MEDCALC. Which one analysis should you consult for? Odds ratios are very tricky. Understanding and interpreting an odds ratio can be very slippery. There's lots of assumptions underlying the maths. So you should probably get help before you write or report odds ratios. You should, or if you're doing a regression, particularly adjusting for multiple confounders, you must definitely speak to a statistician. You need to be sure that the model is valid. There's lots of statistical issues which we go into regression analysis, which you really shouldn't do this unless you actually know what you're doing. Adjusted regressions are complex, and you need to be sure that you're doing all the right stuff. So this is not for first timers. This you should really ask for help for. Okay. In conclusion, get statistical advice early in the research progress. While you're writing the protocol, before you design your data collection tool, speak to a statistician, decide what kind of analysis you want to do, let them help you design your data collection so you don't wind up collecting garbage and have to re-enter it all 2 or 3 times over. Data management is crucial. You must use the right software. RedCap is wonderful. It's really good, and it's easy to use, and it really should be the way of the future. You must be able to inspect your data for outliers, to clean and to format your data set. You should be confident with simple descriptive statistics, and you must get help for advanced hypothesis testing. If you're on Twitter, and you should be on Twitter, you should look at Liz and Molly, because they've got these wonderful cartoons about coping with life and work-life balance and stress. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, then go and visit Liz and Molly on Twitter, and they will, I guarantee you, they'll give you a smile. Right. So I will send this to Mignon to post onto the website. If you want to go and look at those links and download the database guidelines, that would be very useful. Definitely recommend that. and then looking at some of the examples of bad databases that I've been involved with might possibly help you to save making some of the mistakes that that I've made in the past.
Brilliant, Dave. That was really lovely. Thank you very much. We have a couple of questions for you. So one is that people found your talk very useful and very practical. So Valerie's had to go, but she's also said really useful tips. Is this UCT Stats website available to non-UCT staff?
I'm pretty sure. I think it's just the website. I'll check.
Okay. And then the other question is from Ruhan, says, thanks, Dave. Brings back many flashbacks of MED trial and error. This would have saved so much time. And I think everybody feels like that.
Yeah.
I
must say, when someone sends me a bad Excel spreadsheet, I was like, oh no, not again. I've done this before and it's awful. This is going to take me hours and hours. I wish I could have spoken to you 3 weeks ago. We could have saved so much heartache. Yeah,
you got post-traumatic stress there, have you? I can hear it. Any other questions, guys?
Yeah, that UCT Stats Support website is live. You can just click through it. It's available.
Great. And Dave, I was just wondering whether you'd be happy for us to have your slides as well.
Sure. Yeah,
that'd be really, really nice. Good.
I'll just make sure I haven't left any personal identifiers on, and then I'll send it through as a PDF.
That'd be lovely. Fantastic. So lots of people are saying really useful talks. So really, I must say, from a research point of view, we were up to 70 at one point, and it's really great because it just shows how much need there is for some really practical advice. So thanks very much, Dave. It was amazing. It's almost like you and Valerie actually discussed your talks before and decided who was going to speak on what. So just in closing, just to say thank you very much to Valerie and to Dave. Also just to advertise that we have a SAPA Congress, which is very exciting, coming up on the 13th to the 15th of August. The University of Pretoria is putting that on. Mel and Jane Neal and Robin Green have all been working very hard on that, and Ane. So please look that up. It really is worth logging onto that. It's going to be virtual, so everybody can join. Marty, thank you very much for doing the sharing. If you can just pop back to our website. So just to remind everybody that we've just launched our new website. We're very excited. It's really sexy. It's dynamic. We're very excited about it. Thank you to Tanya Dennis and Andrew Redfern with Ziad Dangor and Megan, who have spent literally hours on this. I can't tell you how many meetings we've had. And also thanks to Despina, Gary and Haroon in the background, together with Fiona Kritzinger as well. So we're very excited about this. Please go and have a look at it and join us so that we can really make a difference to the children in South Africa. And then just in closing, our advert for next week, and here a huge thank you to Barbara Rousseau, who's been putting on these webinars for the last 2 years now, and to Marty, who's taken over. An interventional cardiology and ECG quiz with Professors Brown and Zulka looks really, really exciting, and we hope to see you at that. Thank you very much, everybody, and hope you have a good evening.